Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GRP. Back on a Thursday, back at it. And yeah, we got a whole lot going on this weekend because this weekend is the Sphere. UFC Noche happening at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Set up to be one of the most hyped events ever because of it being in the Sphere. And supposedly it's going to blow our minds. Are we going to see that? I don't know. Uh-oh. I just noticed something. I keep doing one little thing wrong almost every time I start. Like last time I forgot the chat, but this time I got the chat up. So if you're watching live and you want to, get involved and talk about anything, any of the topics I'm talking about, hit me up in the chat because it's open. Just try to be nice, We don't need to be rude. I'm just here hanging out, having a good time. But yeah, we got UFC Noche coming up. I'm excited. Listen, is the entire card a banger? Maybe not, but you know what? Everyone's coming out. The Mexican fighters are coming out for Mexican Independence Day. It's an homage to Mexican combat sports overall. It's supposed to be one of the greatest visual sporting events we've ever seen, and so on. So Dana White's promised a lot, but they've spent a lot of money. And I'm hoping that it's going to be as great as he's saying it is. He's saying in the Sphere, when you're there in person, it's going to be mind-blowing. And it's going to be one of the best things you've seen on a broadcast ever. So a lot to live up to, but a lot to be excited for. Of course, when you get that excited, you could be let down. And that's what I'm hoping doesn't happen, but you never know. So I'm going to stick with being excited for it because got a lot of good stuff happening this weekend for the event. And yeah, we get to sit here and talk about it for a little while tonight to preview and get ready and talk about what could be. And then next week we'll talk about what happened. So stick around for all of that. Of course, we have to break down the main event, or the main card, I should say, which is what I usually go through. But I always like to talk about the undercard as well. A lot fewer fights on this card because of all of the in-between antics that are going to be happening. So there's that. So a smaller card, but yet we got to pay the same price because it's supposed to blow our minds. No change there. So it is what it is, though, because I'll watch it anyway, and I guess that might be the problem. But it's hard not to catch a pay-per-view because that's what I sit here and do is talk about this stuff. So I really need to fix that because that flag back there is kind of driving me crazy, but it's because I have a fan on above me. So yeah, but you can see that's my old school flag with the logo from when I very first started. Yeah, it blows around over there. I had it kind of, to the point where it wouldn't be blowing around in the picture, but I guess it came off. No big deal. So yeah, we're representing. I listen. I am Mexican, so I may not, I don't know. I may not speak Spanish all the time, but I'm brown, and by my last name and everything like that, yes, I'm Mexican. Okay, so and some people call me the whitest Mexican they've ever met, which is hilarious. I've been called a coconut. Anything else you want? Maybe that's racist. I don't know. It's funny. I don't care. I like to fuck around, but it doesn't mean you have to be racist in a bad way. It's funny though. I gotta say it's funny. People are creative. But I mean, I understand why. I don't talk like a Mexican guy. If you heard me on the phone, you might not know that I'm Mexican, I guess. I've got it all my life. It's all good. But I am proud of the fact that my heritage is from Mexico and Mexican. Maybe it's way back in the timeline, but it's there. So this is something, I got the Mexican flag flying in the background there of the picture. If you see behind, my camera, behind what you're seeing, it's the flag moving in the background because, this is what this event is all about. UFC Noche, they did it last year for Mexican Independence Day, which is, this weekend. So that's That's what they do it for. Usually it's a boxing match that happens. Last year, no boxing that happened on this date. But this year there's a boxing match again. So kind of going head to head with the UFC, but we'll get into that in a few. So of course, just this is what I did last year too, Mexican themed stuff because hey, it's UFC Noche and it's Mexican Independence Day. So and everything revolving around it has to do with you know, everything from Mexico and stuff. So bunch of Mexican fighters on the card. Should be fun. And yeah, we're gonna get into it. As for everything else, again, we have some boxing. Won't get too much into that because there's so much to talk about with the UFC. Last week's card was pretty good. As far as the cards that have been lately, I guess, it was pretty good. Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady. So that was a good card. We'll have to get into that one. Some news from a big name fighter that retired this past weekend. I'm sure you might have heard of it, Demetrius Johnson, but we got to get into that because I got to pay him respects for everything he did. He's definitely been one of my favorites, especially in his weight class. Oh, mom's in the chat. Hey, mom. Yeah, so we got a lot to talk about, but I got to make sure that I shout out my sponsor, Noctane Smelling Salts. There we go. And because as always, I appreciate the sponsorship. It's something I use all the time. It's good stuff. It gets me awake and alive. Nice little boost when I need it. There's their logo and a QR code if you're interested. They do They do a cap system, so the white cap is the least potent. If you've never tried it and want to try it, it's the best route to go, the white cap. The black cap is like your mid-range, like you like it, but it doesn't have to be too strong. There you go. And then the red cap is this one, which is the strongest of them all. So that's what I like because I've been doing smelling salts for a little while now. But Noctane Smelling Salts, check it out. Their website's dope. A lot of good stuff to see there. A lot of info. You can read up on some of the stuff, some of the science behind it and everything like that. All of it's there. Follow that QR code. Check it out. I always like to take a quick whiff before I get started on the show. And since they are my sponsor, I got to do it on the show. Oh, got to shake it. I don't know why. I always do that. I forget to shake it. I shook it before I picked it up, but I shake it again. Ooh, there it is. Ooh, that's nice. That gets me alert, keeps my brain going, and yeah, nice feeling, gets you going. Follow that QR code. They can also incorporate some scents in there, so something that smells good. So it's ammonia basically. That's the basis of it. That's what gets you that strong hit. And yeah, if you don't really like that smell, you can get some scents behind it. They have a bunch of different ones that they can add in. It's good stuff. You can follow them on Facebook or Instagram as well. And yeah, I appreciate the sponsorship. Thanks again. The red cap, of course, like I said, the strongest. That's what I like. Matches my mic nicely. Black bottle, red cap. Good shit. There you go. Check it out. Thanks for the sponsorship. Mom was saying, yes, your great grandparents were from Mexico. Yeah. Thanks, Mom. I know I like it's like I know, but I always forget like exactly how far back it goes. But yeah, definitely the heritage there. So love you too, by the way, Mom. Thank you again for, your input. I appreciate that. So yeah, let's get into it because there's a lot to talk about. Like I said, some combat sports news. That's always what we go for first. So let's get into that right now. Actually, before I do that, there was something else I wanted to. What was the other thing? No, I'll save that for then. Man, I swear there was one other thing I was going to talk about before I got into things. Well, I can't remember. It is what it is. I've been focusing on all of the fights and everything like that. So let's get into that right now. combat sports news. Here we go. Demetrius Johnson retiring from MMA. He hadn't fought in a year, so it had been a while, and you know, he's kind of hinted at retirement for a little while. By the way, I just realized, if you notice in the background of all of my visuals here and my camera and stuff, you can see the sphere, the graphics on the sphere. Obviously, here, I'll go ahead and just drop this. DJ, we'll be right back to you. There you go. There's a cool view of the sphere. You know, I always like to have a moving background when I'm doing the podcast, if you watched before. So I thought this was pretty cool. I've seen the sphere in person. I've been inside of it. I watched the show there. It's just their like flagship show. It's like just basically like animals, the earth. It's just kind of a crazy show. I liked it though. It was awesome. You know, you get to sit there and enjoy some drinks. I was already drinking before that. Had a good time, and got to sit back and relax. The chairs have haptic feedback, which apparently is gonna be in play for a percentage of the seats. So we sat in some of those seats when we watched the show inside the sphere when we went last year. You know, walking by it is insane. Just screens all on the outside. It's crazy. It's definitely something, if you haven't seen it yet, or if you are interested at all, it's definitely worth checking out. Even if you just go to it, and you know, you can go on the monorail. If you look to the right of the sphere right now, you can kind of see the track of the monorail. It's pretty cool too. Jump on the monorail. It's not very expensive, and you can pass right by it. I bet if you do it at night, it's dope. We went by it a couple times during the day, and it was still cool as shit. So but like I said, we went inside, watched the show. You get air, you get like some mist. There's all kinds of things that happen while you're watching the show to immerse you in the experience. So a lot of that stuff is going to be, you know, affecting the way that people watch it while they're in the sphere for Noche UFC. So that should be crazy. That's definitely gonna be a different kind of experience there. So just so you know, I usually don't bring too much attention to my background, but this one's different, and I think the graphics are pretty insane. I like what they did with the sphere and everything like that, so I thought I'd show it off there. But here we go. Demetrius Johnson, former UFC champion, multiple time champion. One championship is where he ended his career. He got traded for Ben Askren, which in my opinion, that was an L for the UFC. He get terrified by, oh, my wife said you get terrified by the sharks on the screen. Yeah, she does not like sharks, and those sharks popped up on that screen, and it was a different kind of experience, but fun nonetheless, unless you don't like sharks, and then I get it, because sharks can be scary to some people. My wife has a complex with sharks. But yeah, one championship is where DJ wound up. Mighty Mouse, we all know and love him. He was, you know, the flyweight champion forever. Didn't get all the recognition because it's the smaller weights. Those smaller weight classes, just it's tough, you know. They're smaller guys, and it just, I don't know why it's gotten better since, you know, DJ left, and it's not because DJ left, it's just because that division almost went away, and then it had kind of a revamp, and it jumped up again, and there's been a lot of good fights. But I always believe that DJ was so good, he cleaned out the division, and so it was like, well, let's trade him up. He was willing to go and fight in Singapore and do everything for one championship, so that's what happened. And the UFC got Ben Askren, which wasn't the best, but you know, Ben has done a lot in his career. He was a champion in multiple organizations, and you know, they just got him at the end of his career, basically. So, you know, kind of an L for the UFC, but no disrespect to Askren, it just, you know, his prime kind of passed him. So, and never getting into the UFC before that because of his disputes with Dana White, and a lot of stuff that happened with Ben Askren. He just never made his way to the UFC during his prime. He did beat one of the greats. He beat Robbie Lawler, even though Robbie was seconds away from finishing him. He wound up getting a submission on Robbie. which I was sad about because Robbie Lawler's always been one of my favorite fighters. But either way, this is about Demetrius Johnson, and yes, he finally called it quits. He retired. He's known for so many great things, man. He gave us so many goddamn good fights. Now he's, streaming. He's got, all kinds of different shows and content he puts out there, breaking down fights, reacting to fights, just all kinds of stuff. He's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to MMA, and then he's great with the video games. He's always playing Xbox. I think he's even sponsored by Xbox. He's just got so many things going for him. So he definitely is not going to be losing out on money. He's definitely got different ways of making money, but I think he was just time to call it quits for him. He got knocked out once pretty badly, but was able to avenge that loss with a big knockout of his own. He got head kicked and knocked out, and then he came back and did the exact same thing to the same opponent, which was pretty insane. Because you can do soccer kicks and knees to the head on the ground, kicks to the head on the ground in one championship. So he was able to do that. He fought in a big fight against a mixed rules fight, MMA and Muay Thai, against Rodtang, which was crazy. They started with Muay Thai, which is a hell of a thing for Demetrius Johnson to just jump into. So, because Muay Thai is just way different than MMA. Your striking is similar. You got the kicks, the knees, the elbows and the punches and stuff, but it's a whole different game when you can't use the takedowns and the grappling and the submissions. But he still did his thing there. Survived the first round against Rodtang, one of the best Muay Thai fighters out there, and then gets to the second round and is able to get Rodtang down and submit him. So got the big win there in the first ever mixed rules fight of that, of that nature. So just done so many things, man. This crazy flying armbar against I can't remember his name. Damn it. I remembered his name up until now, but here it is. This crazy ass flying armbar. Oh no. Oh man, I screwed up. Let's do this. What did I do here? Well, let's go to this one. Here it is in slow-mo. I was gonna play the full thing, but apparently I screwed it up. So here's the slow-mo though. He grabs, oh god, what is his name? I can't remember. The Taz Mexican, I believe, is his nickname. I can't remember his full name, but look at that. He picks him up, throws him, puts him in an arm bar, all in one motion, and gets the submission. So Ray Borg, that's his name. Damn it, I don't know why it took me so long to remember his name, but anyway, that was what happened there. Yeah, just insane stuff, man. He's so talented. I mean, check this out. This is one of his iconic pictures of all of the UFC titles when back in the day when they used to give out a belt every time he defended his belt. That's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 belts right there. That's just a dope ass picture. You can't say he's not one of the GOATs after looking at something like that. Some of the skills he had, everything he's done. Got to meet him at a UFC Fan Expo way back in the day when he was just coming up. Cool dude. Everything was, I mean, he's just a down-to-earth guy, and he's very outspoken, and he showed it when he retired. He grabbed the mic and was like, give me this damn mic. And he's getting all emotional. His voice is squeaking as he's getting emotional as he's talking about his retirement. They inducted him into the One Championship Hall of Fame right then and there. I guess they asked him to like lay the belt in the cage and leave it there, kind of like if he was fighting, you would leave your gloves, but they asked him to leave his belt, and he's like, I'm not leaving my damn belt. That shit's going home with me. and that's DJ for you. That's the kind of dude he is. He's funny, he's witty, and he's quick. So just watch any of his content, man. His videos are fucking hilarious. His reactions are great. His knowledge, of course, is on point, considering he's one of the best fighters ever. He's one of my goats. If you don't consider him a goat, you know, it is what it is. But to me, I don't know how you couldn't. With all of those belts, a champion in multiple organizations, already in one Hall of Fame. Dana White reacted by saying, you know, of course he'll be in the UFC Hall of Fame. So I'm sure we'll see that probably next year for International Fight Week when they do the Hall of Fame inductions. But I just wanted to give all their due respect to Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse. What can you say? I mean, he's a badass. Thank you for all the fights, DJ. Thank you for all the content. Everything you do is just awesome. So I hope he finds even more success in everything he does. And, you know, he paved the way for a lot of the small guys, even though there was a lot before him. But he's one of those guys that just, he set that bar so damn high. And I don't think anyone's reached it since, and I don't know that anyone will anytime in the near future. But as far as, you know, in his weight class. So good luck, DJ, and appreciate you for all that you did. So moving on, we got Conor McGregor in the news again, because this time, you know, obviously he goes on Twitter rampages. It's X now, but you know, whatever, we call them tweets still. He went on a whole thing about becoming or running for president, saying that he should, saying that he's gonna run for president and that he should be, you know, become the president basically. And this headline says Conor McGregor scraps UFC comeback, will instead run for president of Ireland in 2025. So yeah, I forgot to mention that, but yes, he's talking about running for president in Ireland. That's where he's from. That's where he lives. But yeah, I mean, will he? I don't know. But I don't think that he's scrapping his UFC comeback. That's a bit of a stretch there. But let's see what he had to say in his long-winded tweet. This was the only part that really made sense to talk about, but it says McGregor, who hasn't competed in mixed martial arts since July 2021, teased a possible presidential run on social media. So there it is, teased a possible presidential run. Of course, they had to clickbait it, but whatever. On social media, writing, as president, I hold the power to summon the Dale as well as dissolve it. I would have all the answers the people of Ireland seek from these thieves of the working man, these disruptors of the family unit, these destructors of small business, and on and on. So I don't know whether he's serious or not. I'm not sure. Last time I checked, you know, a lot of the people from Ireland were not so keen on how he carries himself and the things that he does, but he still has a lot of support, gets a lot of love, obviously, from his homeland. So you never know. There's been crazier things, and a lot of people didn't think that some of the presidents that have been presidents in the US would ever become a president, and they have. So you never know what could happen, but that was just something Conor put out there, and I thought it was worth talking about for a second, because if come to find out it's true, he decides to say, you know, I'm not coming back. I got to do something better for my country. I mean, that's admirable, but I don't see him not fighting. That's all he ever talks about, is how he has to fight no matter what. He just can't seem to make his way in the cage. There's some things that have been said about that, like, you know, the UFC is involved in broadcast deals right now, and they're holding out, having him fight due to him only having 2 fights left on his contract. And with that being said, you know, of course they want to be able to tell everyone, hey, we still have the biggest star in all of combat sports, Conor McGregor, and you're definitely getting 2 fights out of him, and if it's up to us, we'll sign him and you'll get more. But they can't guarantee it, because Conor said multiple times that once his contract's up, he's out, and he might go to bare knuckle or do other things, and now he's talking about becoming president of his country. So what will happen with that, who knows? But that's Conor for you. Always keeps you guessing, always throwing stuff out there, and we'll just have to wait and see. But along with Mexican Independence Day comes a Canelo Alvarez fight, of course. That's usually what happens. It did not happen last year, but this year it is happening, and they're actually doing it up the street from the UFC fights happening at the Sphere. Canelo's fighting at MGM, or I don't know, because Dana keeps talking about the fact that it's a fight with MGM, but I saw something about it being happening at T-Mobile. Yeah, it's happening at T-Mobile Arena, but that's probably what it is. T-Mobile is owned by MGM, so that's why Dana's talking about, you know, the fact that he doesn't have a problem with Canelo fighting on the same night. He has a problem with MGM kind of screwing him over. You know, the UFC puts on all their fights in Vegas at T-Mobile, and just because they're not there this time and they're doing it at the Sphere, well, T-Mobile decided, okay, well, Canelo's gonna have a fight here. But he's fighting Edgar Berlanga, and you know, I've heard nothing but the fact that this is kind of a fluke fight. It's pretty easy. Canelo is like Canelo's favored heavily over Berlanga, so who knows? But you know, I don't follow boxing that closely, so it's not something that I can really speak on in depth. But Alvarez is 61-2 overall. Berlanga's 22-0, so Canelo's trying to give him that first L on his record. So we'll see if Berlanga can keep that undefeated record, or if he's run into an opponent he can't beat, which is highly likely. Looks like Berlanga's a bit taller, has a little more of a reach by about 3 inches or so on the reach, and he's 6'1" as opposed to Canelo, who's 5'7.5". Both orthodox fighters, and Canelo's 34, Berlanga's 27. So the younger undefeated fighter going against the seasoned vet in Canelo. But yeah, that's happening as well Saturday night. So I mean, if you're a big boxing fan, then obviously you might be jumping back and forth, or I'm not sure. But also on that card, Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumbee. That looks like should be a good fight. Caleb Plant is one of those names you hear a lot in boxing. He's 22-2. McCumbee's 28-0. So going up against another undefeated fighter. Plant's 32 years old. McCumbee's 31. But yeah, looks pretty similar in everything else, except for McCumbee's got 21 KOs and Caleb Plant's got 13. So should be a tough one, looks like, but Caleb Plant is the big name there. Rolando Romero versus Manuel Jaimez. I missed one. Erislandy Lara versus Danny Garcia. And then some fights on the undercard as well. There's a few other fights down there. So yeah, that's what's competing against the UFC Noche at the Sphere. Canelo's fighting at T-Mobile Arena versus Edgar Berlanga. Caleb Plant on the card as well. So check that out if you're into some boxing. Moving on from that though, we'll hit up some Dana White's Contender Series. Happens every Tuesday. This was week 5 of this season. We had 5 fights per usual, really. But one of these fights got scrapped at the last minute because apparently Otani versus Steele was the fight that got scrapped. Otani, I guess, pulled out. Not exactly sure why. I didn't catch that. But yeah, so there was 4 fights total. 4 fights that actually went down. And there was some pretty exciting stuff that happened in these fights. The women, Lafram Boys, I think, against Cagliari. That was a pretty exciting fight. And that brought a crazy submission here by Cagliari with this nasty armbar that she sunk in. Lafram Boys got out for a second, and then Cagliari went ahead and sunk it back in there, got the tap, gave everybody something to look at while she celebrated. So I couldn't even help myself but to laugh at that one. But I mean, this was a pretty great fight. That was a great submission. In the last seconds of round 1, she had 15 seconds left and gets the submission at the end there. But then we move to Sterling versus Latu, and Sterling gets his crazy KO here. Hits that right, barely grazes Latu, but then catches him with this left hook, just throws him backwards with that punch and gets the KO there. And the other big knockout, oh my God, didn't happen again. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna skip that one. I have a couple of things that are, I know what I did there. There was one other big KO, but apparently I screwed it up. I don't know how I missed that when I was testing. Maybe I didn't test. That might be why. I was trying to get a bunch of stuff together, so whatever, no big deal. But the contract winners, Musasa, Sterling, and Cagliari, that's what it is, Cagliari. I knew that didn't sound right, but they are the contract winners this week for Dana White's Contender Series. They get the contracts, and what is this? Okay. And yeah, so that's it for Dana White's Contender Series, week 5. So every Tuesday, they do this Contender Series, and Dana basically just finds up and coming fighters, puts them out there for one night. 50-45. Cold Art Maker, what's up, man? Welcome back, loyal viewer. I missed his chats last time, so. But 50-45. What are you talking about there? Wondering. I'm assuming he's giving me a score for one of the fights, but yeah, we had those contract winners for Dana White's Contender Series this week, and yeah, if you're into checking out some of the up and coming fighters, it happens every Tuesday. It's either 4 or 5 p.m. that they start. It's a pretty early start, but you usually get about 5 fights, and you get to see possible future champions, because we had Sugar Sean, who's fighting this weekend, that came from Dana White's Contender Series. I always mention when I'm looking, Merab wins 50-45. Okay. There is a possibility for that. I will get into that and what I think about it, but I can see why you would think that. I know it seems like a lot of people are on Sean O'Malley's side right now, thinking that Sean's gonna win. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people also say that Merab has a real good chance, but I haven't heard anybody say outright that Merab has it in the bag. So I feel like it's gonna be a great fight. But yeah, if Merab wins, I'm thinking it's gonna definitely be by decision. So Cold Art Maker, I hear what you're saying, and we'll get into that here in a few. Stick around for that one. But yeah, along with this weekend, of course, with a big pay-per-view comes a watch party podcast. Doing that this weekend during the main card of the pay-per-view. I'm gonna have special guests in studio. There's gonna be 4 of us in here, so that should be fun. Technically Unsound Podcast will not be joining this time. I'm gonna have 4 people in here. It gets a little crazy when there's too many people, because then everyone's either talking over each other, or I'm having technical difficulties trying to bring in 3 other people plus the 4 people in studio. I do this all on my own, so it gets a little rough. So in order to avoid a lot of that, I'm gonna just stick to in studio. So there'll be 4 of us here reacting live to all the fights during the main card of the pay-per-view. UFC Noche, we're obviously going to be talking about what's happening in the Sphere, what they're going to do during the broadcast. And yeah, so check it out if you don't want to listen to the commentary. I mean, of course, they're saying that they're doing some kind of like movies in between all the fights, and the fights are going to be the star of the show when the fights are on. But in between the fights, they're doing an homage to Mexican sports and combat sports and stuff like that. So, there might be stuff to listen to there, but I'm not sure. But if you want to listen to us, just have fun reacting to all the fights, laughing, joking, talking shit, hitting the good old Noctane smelling salts, and having some drinks. It should be fun. If you haven't watched the watch party before, join me here, same time, same place, 7 p.m. On this YouTube channel. We'll be going live when the main card goes live, and yeah, it'll be fun. So check it out. UFC Noche on Saturday, 7 p.m. start time for us, just like the main card for that event. Check it out. Don't miss it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll know exactly when we go live. So let's move over to a recap of UFC Vegas 97. And here we go again. This is what happens when I throw things in at the last minute and I don't prep correctly, but that's okay. Listen, it is what it is. Sometimes I forget things. But we're here. We're making the show happen. So this past weekend we had Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady happening UFC Vegas 97 at the Apex. And the past few Apex cards have been fucking whack. Just whack. Especially the last one was not great. But they brought it this time. A lot better fights. There was a total of 12 fights on this card. So see, the fight night cards even, there's only 2 fights less than that on UFC Noche on Saturday. So let's see, what do we have at the bottom of the card? Nathan Fletcher gets a win over Ziggy Montes Ramaska. That was a submission win for the first fight of the night in the featherweight division in the second round. So we started that one off with a bang. Andre Petrosky versus Dylan Budka, I'm not sure which way. Petrosky gets a unanimous decision win. It was a 189-pound catch weight because Budka just damn near passed out on the stage on the scale when he was weighing in. He was just wobbling, like doing this, like he couldn't stand still. They had to like kind of keep their hands there waiting to make sure that he got to weigh in, and then they had to help him down because he almost passed out and just completely fainted on stage, which was crazy. And a lot of times when that happens, when fighters miss weight, they wind up winning the fight. But I think Budka was in such bad condition, it just didn't do anything good for him. So, but then we had Jacqueline Amorim versus Vanessa Demopoulos. I talked about this one a little bit last week in the preview. Demopoulos being the ex-stripper, and Amorim could be a stripper. Just kidding. But yeah, that was a strawweight fight, and it ended in a submission in the first round with Jacqueline Amorim getting the armbar submission. But it was a bit controversial because everyone was talking about the fact that she kind of hooked the glove. She had her fingers in Demopoulos' glove, not allowing that arm to get free. And a lot of people say that that's what allowed her to sink in that submission. And Demopoulos actually, kind of argued that at the end as well. But it wasn't caught by the ref. And to this point, nothing has happened. I guess it's because, as you can see here, her fingers are hooked in a little bit, but I think that it's possible she was able to maybe break free from that, but I don't know. It looks like she only has like 2 fingers stuck in there. Either way, it's illegal, so not a good look, but she did sink in that submission and get the win in the strawweight division for the women. Submission by armbar in the first round. After that, we had Gabriel Santos in the featherweight division versus Zha Yi. That was a unanimous decision win for Santos. Andre Lima versus Felipe Dos Santos. Unanimous decision win for Lima in the flyweight division for the men. Isaac Dolgarian versus Brendan Marotte. Arm triangle choke for Dolgarian in the featherweight division for the men. And then we have Chris Padilla versus Rong Zhu. And this ended by TKO by doctor stoppage in the second round because Padilla was just landing strikes left and right. Just landing flush and causing damage. You can see here this big left. Rong Zhu just wound up getting cracked here. This was like some crazy half punch, half elbow, caught an elbow to the eye as well. And then he had some weird reaction where he's grabbing his eye. I think he maybe thought he got poked, and that's why he's pointing like, hey, you poked me in the goddamn eye. But really, he got elbowed in the eye. So it's probably the pointy part of Padilla's arm or elbow that caught him in the eye, because then that eye blew up. And as you can see there, he's bloodied up, his eyes swollen shut, and the doctor stopped it in the second round. So Chris Padilla gets the win by TKO, doctor stoppage, and shit, he caused damage, and that's why the doctor stopped it. So that, you know, it's a well-deserved win in my opinion. Rong Zhu looked like he still wanted to keep going, but obviously with an eye that's swollen that bad and with it swelled shut, I mean, there's no way they're gonna let him continue. So then we move to Trevor Peek versus Yanal Ajmuz. This was the start of the main card. Trevor Peek came out, you know, with the strikes heavy, but Ajmuz was able to turn it around and start getting the best of Trevor Peek, landing all kinds of different strikes. Big kick there, a left hand, good connections. I mean, he missed that, or he got Trevor to miss that punch and landed the big left hook, snapping Trevor Peek's head back. But Ajmuz gets the unanimous decision win in this one in the lightweight division for the first fight on the main card, UFC Vegas 97. Moving over to the next fight, Matt Schnell versus Cody Durden, and I believe Durden was a late replacement, if I remember correctly. So I think Matt Schnell was supposed to be fighting somebody else. But 29 seconds into the second round, Matt Schnell winds up getting submitted by Cody Durden, but not before, you know, he landed a couple strikes on Durden. As you saw that tattoo on Durden's shoulder, he's an All-American wrestler, but he got landed on a bit here, Matt Schnell, with the good uppercut, but Durden came back, started landing some strikes of his own and some ground and pound here, and then winds up getting Matt Schnell in this, I guess it's called a ninja choke, but he wrapped that shit up tight. You can see how it's under the chin on Schnell, and Schnell was trying to get out of it, you know, trying to roll out, trying to defend, but couldn't get out of it, had to tap. And then oddly, after the fight, in the post-fight interview for Durden, it looked like Schnell was waiting around for a second. He takes off his gloves, and then Durden starts talking, and Schnell just was like, shrugs his shoulders, kind of grabs his gloves and throws them in the middle of the cage and walks out. So it seems that he apparently retired. Didn't say much about it. Haven't seen much about it since. But yeah, apparently he retires. And I think that was his, let's check it out real quick. It was kind of a weird way that he did it. Yeah, that was his third loss in a row. So maybe he's thinking, hey, you know, I might get cut after this, because he's been finished in all three of those fights. But I mean, there was, you know, he fought Mateus Nicolau, lost by KO. Steve Erceg lost by KO, and now lost to Cody Durden by submission. So maybe it was frustration. Maybe he knows after losing by, you know, getting finished in 3 fights in a row, that the UFC might cut him or something. Maybe he just feels like he's done with it. But he took off his gloves, left him in the cage, and walked out. So might be safe to say he retired. Haven't seen a full confirmation on all that, but I haven't heard too many people talking about it either. So Cody Durden gets the win in the second round, 29 seconds in, submission by ninja choke. Pretty damn good submission, as you can see here. But moving on to Steve Garcia, man, he is a fucking beast. This guy, he gets fucking, I mean, in the first round, it's back and forth, right? Kyle Nelson's a great opponent, and he was in there, he was game, he was ready to do some work, and Steve Garcia is just a beast. He gets himself into some bad positions, but he's always able to get out of it. Nelson, ties him up here, threatening that armbar. But Garcia makes his way out of it, frees up his hands, starts dropping big hammer fists, big ground and pound, and winds up TKOing Kyle Nelson in the first round, 3 minutes and 59 seconds in. That was also a catch weight. I didn't actually hear what the hell happened there, but that was a 149-pound catch weight fight. But Steve Garcia gets a TKO by elbows and punches over Kyle Nelson in the first round. And it was a pretty good fight. I mean, Garcia's ready for some higher level opponents, in my opinion, because he gets himself in bad positions, like I said. So maybe he needs to work on his defense a little bit, or his fight IQ. But either way, he's tough enough to withstand whatever's being thrown at him and wind up on top and looking good and wind up winning. So I believe that was, let me see how many fights in a row that was for him. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's his fifth in a row. So he's on a 5-fight win streak with wins over Sung Woo Choi, Mel Quizel Costa. Oh my God, he's fought Chase Hooper. I can't even say this other guy's name, but all finishes in his last 5 fights. TKO, TKO, KO, KO, TKO. His last loss was in 22, and that was a KO. So he's either winning by KO or losing by KO, but on a 5-fight win streak, looking to make his way up in the rankings or into the rankings. And yeah, looks like he's gonna probably get a bigger opponent next time. But moving on to the co-main event, we had Jessica Andrade versus Natalia Silva. And this was a pretty good fight too. I mean, Andrade being the former UFC champion, and Silva's just been putting up good fights lately as well. But Andrade is like, she's been kind of back and forth with everything. And, against somebody like Silva who's hungry, up and coming, ready to make her way up. What is going on with, every time I click on things, it is not working. Let me see. So that's not it. What's going on with this webpage? Well, I'm having trouble. So, yeah. Okay, well, I guess that page isn't gonna cooperate with me, but Silva gets the win by decision. I mean, you can see the Superman punch by Andrade here, but Silva comes back and starts putting in work, gets the kick, and starts landing a lot on Andrade. Andrade is like either handing out punishment or taking it. I feel like she's kind of at that point in her career where she's, maybe not gatekeeper status, but she's at that point where she's still a tough fight, but it's just one of those things where she's dropping fights and everything like that. I'm gonna have to X out of that. I don't know what's happening with this. I'm trying to click on stuff on this webpage and it's just not working. It's like frozen. There we go. Okay, let's see if we can get back to it here, because I just wanted to get into okay, here we go. So Silva is undefeated in the UFC, so she was able to keep that O next to her name. Let's see, she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak, undefeated in the UFC. She's beaten Jasmine Jasvizius, Andrea Lee, Viviana Araujo. So she's fought some pretty decent names in there and gotten wins. And now fighting a former champion in Jessica Andrade. And yeah, I feel like she did a pretty damn good job. I mean, like I said, she put in some work. Her striking looked good. And Jessica Andrade was on a 2-fight win streak. So she was trying to keep that win streak alive, but she wasn't able to against Silva. Silva got the best of her and gets a unanimous decision win over Jessica Andrade. And that brings us to the main event. Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady. Sorry, I had to answer that. But yeah, this fight, I was interested in this fight. I was waiting for this fight, honestly, because Sean Brady is just a badass, and Gilbert Burns is one of those guys. It's always a tough fight, and you know he's always been in contention for so long. But Sean Brady, besides the loss to Belal Muhammad a couple fights ago, who, by the way, Belal is now the champion, obviously. So that's a good win, or I mean, that's not a bad loss for Sean Brady. So he just kind of looked like maybe he got tired in that fight or something, but Belal was just making his way up there trying to get that title fight, and that's exactly what he did, and winds up winning the title. So Sean Brady lost him a couple fights ago, comes back, beats Kelvin Gastelum, and now beats Gilbert Burns. Before that loss, he was on a 5-fight win streak. His only loss in the UFC being to Belal Muhammad. So, you know, he's coming in here thinking, okay, I'm fighting a vet, fighting somebody who, you know, is always a tough fight. And Gilbert Burns definitely put it on him. I mean, he picked him up and threw him in this one. But Brady turned it around, answered with a throw of his own, and then continued to throw those heavy hands of his. I mean, Brady just looks so fucking ripped, dude. Like, I can't even, it's crazy. The tattoos probably help with that, but I mean, he's a Philly boy, and he's definitely been making his mark in the UFC with only one loss to the current champion. So looks like he's gonna make his way up in the rankings, and you know, looking for even bigger opponents now that he's beat Gilbert Burns. And Gilbert is now on a 3-fight losing streak, which sucks. But those are losses to the current champ Belal Muhammad, Jack Della Maddalena, and now Sean Brady. So 3-fight losing streak for Gilbert Burns. Where does he go next? I don't know. It's always tough when you lose 3 in a row, but the UFC is definitely not going to get rid of somebody like Gilbert Burns just because he lost 3 in a row. At least I don't think so. Gilbert's always that guy who can turn it around in a second and wind up on a, you know, multiple fight win streak. So he's only had been finished once, which was by Jack Della in his last fight. That was a KO in the 3rd round. His other 2 losses were by decision, which he took Belal Muhammad to decision, who's now the champ too. So, you know, Gilbert Burns still has it in him to turn things around, get on a big win streak, and maybe become a contender again. So he is getting up there in age, though, 38 years old, but he still has the skills, and I think he's going to turn it around. It's just going to be a matter of, you know, climbing the ladder again and making his way back up there. So that does it for UFC Vegas 97. Now let's get into UFC Noche at the Sphere, UFC 306. As I said earlier, you know, this is supposed to be one of the craziest events to watch on TV or in person, and I'm just waiting to see how it's gonna hold up. You know, I mean, the Sphere looks dope, as you see in the background of my pics here. You know, all of the art has been good, the posters have been good, all of the promotional stuff has been great. You know, these Noche designs that they made last year that they started doing have just evolved into, you know, even better. And I don't know, it's just visually appealing, and it's definitely bringing some hype to the fights. Everyone was expecting some kind of crazy card for this one, and don't get me wrong, I feel like it's still a pretty good card. But with all of the craziness happening with the Sphere, all of the preparation, the money that it takes to get this all worked out, you know, it sounds like it was like $1 million just to do a run through. So every time they do like a what is it called when they do like just a run through of what's supposed to happen for the night and stuff? They got to pay like $1 million. So with that being said, they are, being backed by Riyadh season, so the Saudis are throwing their money in there. It's upwards of over 20 mil in the making of all of this. So of course they're not gonna spend a shit ton of money on big name fighters. They're gonna allow the event to be a star in itself, as well as putting 2 title fights that are supposed to be the star of the fights. So they're kind of co-headlining this event with all of the antics, all of the aesthetics and everything like that, as well as the 2 major title fights. Now granted, there's definitely been other cards out there that have happened where there's been multiple like 2 title fights on it, and the rest of the card's not great because the 2 title fights mean big money. They got to pay these guys, right? And women. And for the title, you should be getting paid more. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't, right? Plus pay-per-view numbers and all that. But people have been bitching and complaining about this card not being worth the $80, which I understand, because $80 every time you're watching a fight for the UFC is tough, if not all of them are the best fights. But there's so much content being put out there. It's crazy. There's so many fights that happen that they can't stack every single card. So they're sharing the card being stacked with all of the craziness that's happening with the Sphere. Plus it's so expensive to have everything going on at the Sphere. But I just feel like it's a little bit confusing, right? So it's Mexican Independence Day. It's UFC Noche. They're doing an homage to Mexican combat sports. That's all of that, right? But it's also UFC 306. And because they've spent so much money, they're now sponsored by Riyadh season, which is a Saudi Arabian, promotion by the Saudis, by Turkey. I forget his name all the time. But anyway, so you have Mexican Independence Day with a bunch of Mexican fighters fighting in Las Vegas and being sponsored by and brought to you by a Saudi company. Happening in Las Vegas. Like, come on, it's confusing, it's funny. All the different stuff that you would think this would be like a Mexico card, but yeah, I mean, they did it in Vegas last year too for Noche UFC. So I mean, I guess it is what it is. You can't complain too much. We're getting a great main card. For the most part, the top 3 fights are definitely something to be excited about. Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes, which should have happened a while back, but Lopes wound up having to fight Dan Ige on very short notice because Brian Ortega had to pull out due to illness. So we have that rematch happening, or I should say that rescheduled fight happening now. Then you got the first title fight, which is the women flyweight division, the trilogy fight between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. So Grasso won the first fight by submission, and Shevchenko, they came to a draw in the second fight. So now they're fighting in the trilogy for the title. And then you have Sean O'Malley, Sugar Sean versus Merab Dvalishvili in the main event for the men's bantamweight division. And yeah, so it's not like you're not getting great fights. I feel like those are really good fights. Are they worth $80? I would say yes. Between those 3 fights especially, and the spectacle that this is supposed to be, the anticipation and wondering if it's gonna live up to the hype, yeah, I guess it's worth the 80. There's not too many cards that are really worth the $80 at this point because they just can't stack every card. There's just too many events. They have to save fighters for other events. They don't want to put high dollar fighters on every single card, or multiple high dollar fighters on all the pay-per-views. So I guess you can't really blame them. I don't know. It just sucks. They keep raising prices for things. They keep they raise the prices for UFC Fight Pass. They raise the prices for ESPN Plus. they raise the prices for the pay-per-views. It's like every few months or every 6 months or something like that, the price is getting raised. And yeah, sure, it's only $5 here, $5 there, but we went from $60 to $65 to $70, $75, $80. So next thing you know, we're gonna be paying $100 for these fucking cards. And I'm like, shit, especially on a month like October, next month, there's 2 pay-per-view events happening. So that means you pay $100 for one event if it goes up that much at any point in time, and you have 2 months out of the year where you have 2 fight cards in a month. That's $400. Now, yes, that's only $20 more than you're paying now per fight, but it adds up. Yeah, I think $400 for 4 pay-per-views that happen in the span of, that happen in 2 different months. It's a big investment, man. And then you have to have ESPN Plus, which you have to pay a monthly fee, or unless you pay outright for the year. But regardless, you have to pay a fee to have ESPN Plus to then order the pay-per-view that you're paying $80 to $100 for if it keeps going up the way it is. So you're paying a lot of money. That's why people pirate shit. I mean, that Turkey El Sheikh, who is from Riyadh season, is talking about trying to do boxing events for $20 for pay-per-views. It's like, that would be great, but you know what, at this point I'd be happy to drop it to like 50, drop it to 40, cut it in half. Don't keep raising the price, cut it in half. Give us $40 pay-per-view events, especially when you do multiple pay-per-views in a month, or even just discount those. They've been running this thing where almost every fight this year, if you order ahead of time, they give you $10 off. So you're paying $70 instead of $80. So now people are like, why are you bitching then? Well, because $70 used to be the regular price, okay? And that's a lot of money, especially when the cards fall short. It's tough. So if you're a true fan and you're not stealing the show in the way that you're pirating or streaming from one of these services that Dana White's constantly threatening, you're paying a lot of money because you got to have ESPN Plus and you got to then pay for the pay-per-view separately. So I don't know. That's just my rant on money because it gets tough. It's expensive. Of course, I'm going to buy the pay-per-view. Even if I'm not going to sit down and watch it live, I still buy it so that I can just go back and watch it at my leisure, when I want to, how I want to, as soon as I want to, and not have to rely on only the highlights. Of course, a lot of times you can get the finishes on social media. Someone's gonna put it out there, but there's nothing like watching the event live, especially if you've been doing it for years and years. And that's where everyone gets stuck, because it's like, well, I'm still gonna watch it, I'm still gonna buy it because it's what I do, right? So I don't know, it's just tough, man. It's tough out here for an MMA fan. And that's why you don't get a lot of diehard fans, because it costs so much damn money. But all that aside, let's get back to this week's pay-per-view event, UFC Noche. On the bottom of the card, I mean, it starts off with what could be a banger, because we got Raul Rosas Jr., who got into the UFC at 17. Well, Dana White's Contender Series, fought at age 17. Gets his first fight in the UFC at age 18 and wins. At this point, I think he only has 1 loss overall in his record. Yep. And he is 3-1 in the UFC, only losing to Christian Rodriguez. His last win was over Ricky Tercios, who was an Ultimate Fighter winner. So, Raul Rosas, being probably the youngest fighter in the UFC right now, is making his name and trying to climb that ladder to get up there and make an even bigger name for himself in the UFC. But this being Mexican Independence Day card, being UFC Noche, of course he's got to be on this card. It only makes sense. And because he's from Mexico, and yeah, he reps Mexico at all times. So he's fighting Quilang Aori, who's 25-11. Obviously, way more experience for him. 31 years old against Raul Rosas, who's 19. But Rosas look good. So they're starting off the card at bantamweight. That's the first fight of the night. Then you got Edgar Chairez versus Joshua Van in the flyweight division. Yasmin Yarigwe versus Ketlin Souza in the women's strawweight division. Fourth fight is Manuel Torres versus Ignacio Bahamondes. That should be a damn good fight. Bahamondes is one of those guys you always want to watch his fight because he's exciting and you never know what's going to happen in one of his fights. That should be a good one against Manuel Torres. And then you got the women in the bantamweight division. Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont. That's the final fight of the prelim card. So a lot of Mexican fighters down there in the prelims. I believe Raul Rosas Jr. is the only early prelim. And then you get to the regular prelims. So there's your first 5 fights. And that brings us to the main card. We got Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne in the flyweight division. And this one should be good too. I feel like this has potential to be an exciting fight. Ode Osbourne is high intensity. Rodriguez has looked pretty good on his own as well. 7-0 in the KO TKO category for Rodriguez. Ode Osbourne is 4-2 there, but 5-4 in submissions for Ode, 5-0 in submissions for Rodriguez. Coming off a win for Rodriguez. He's 1-0 in the UFC, and Ode Osbourne's 4-5. Not a great record there for Ode, but as far as Rodriguez goes, his one win in the UFC is over Dennis Bondar, and that was a submission by rear naked choke, which you see here. That was back in February of this year. So just coming into the UFC, fighting Ode Osbourne, who has like 9 fights in the UFC, coming off a 2-fight losing streak. That was two losses by submission. So here we go. If you're looking to bet, this might be a good bet for you, maybe even a good prop bet, because you got Rodriguez, who has only 1 win in the UFC, and that 1 win being by submission. And you got Ode Osbourne, who has dropped 2 of his last fights by submission, losing by rear naked choke in both. So I might be rethinking my pick here, because I believe I picked Ode Osbourne, but Rodriguez is good on the ground. Ode's got some good hands. He's kind of a good all-around fighter. His last win was against Charles Johnson back in 23. That was a split decision win for him. I'm starting to rethink this. I might have to change up my picks, because I think I might have been thinking of this backwards. I kind of made my picks quickly, just thinking about, just going off the top of my head kind of thing. So I did pick Ode Osbourne. I will have a sheet with my picks at the end of this breakdown here, but so we're looking at Ode Osbourne versus Ronaldo Rodriguez in the flyweight division for the first fight of the main card. Moving on, we got Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Ribovics. So this one is definitely going to be a damn good fight, because Zellhuber's been super impressive in his past few fights. He's 15-1 overall, 3-1 in the UFC, 7-0 KOs, 3-0 in submissions, and 5-1 in decisions against Ribovics. Oh, and he's on a 3-fight win streak. Ribovics is 13-1 overall, 2-1 in the in the UFC. Let's see. What am I looking at here? He's also on a 2-fight win streak. What did I go to? Okay. So yeah, Daniel Zellhuber, his this website is really screwing me up today. It keeps freaking what do you call it? It keeps freezing up on me. So that's what keeps throwing me off here. Sorry. Zellhuber's on a 3-fight win streak. Christian Gallegos, Lando Venata, and Francisco Prada, 2 unanimous decision wins there, and then a submission by Anaconda choke. So his loss was against Trey Ogden. That was by unanimous decision. He's got a lot of decisions on his record. He is coming from Dana White's Contender Series as well, 3-1 in the UFC, like I said. So yeah, it's kind of a toss-up of what you're going to get there from Zellhuber, but I'll tell you this much: he's definitely an impressive fighter, and he's got some talent. So then you got Ribovics, 13-1 overall on that 2-fight win streak, with an impressive ass last win over Terrence McKinney with this big head kick knockout, just flatline McKinney, which is something that he's done to other people. But Ribovics got this in May of this year. KO head kick in the first round. It was quick too, 37 seconds in. So that's something that Zellhuber's got to watch out for. But Zellhuber's definitely taller, lankier. So Ribovics will have to get in some way in order to try to get a strike like this off on Zellhuber. But his other win on this 2-fight win streak is against Kamuela Kirk, and that was a unanimous decision win for him. His loss is against Lok Radzabov. Kicked McKinney's face off, Infinity said. Hell yeah, he did. That was a nasty KO, man. Ribovics is coming from Dana White's Contender Series as well, where he got a KO win in the first round there. So I feel like this is going to be a damn good fight here. I did pick Zellhuber as the winner. Listen, it's hard as fuck to pick fights in MMA. Infinity will tell you that you want to pick against me. Not a bad thing to do, because I'm not the best. I don't know, maybe I overthink it, but listen, I listen to a lot of high level ex UFC fighters that make picks, and a lot of them are wrong a lot of the time. So I can't feel too bad about myself. But yeah, it's tough out here picking fights. Let's move on to one of the bigger fights here. Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. Like I said before, it was scheduled to have happened a while back, and Brian Ortega had to drop out. So that kind of put him in play here for Noche UFC, which, you know, isn't a bad thing, because this is a pretty good fight with two Mexican fighters here. Brian Ortega versus... Actually, Diego Lopes is not Mexican. Is he? I always think he's Mexican, but... No, he is. Because for some reason... No, he's Brazilian. That's right. That's what it is. I'm always thinking that he's Mexican, but he's Brazilian. But he fights on Alexa Grasso's team. So he's definitely got that Mexican flavor. If you want to say that. That was the wrong thing to say. I don't know why I said that, but he's got that Mexican vibe about him. Diego Lopes, you know, he just kind of, and he speaks great Spanish too, so it's just one of those things. But he is from Brazil. Close, I guess it's a little close there. But we got Ortega coming off a win over Yair Rodriguez, and that was by submission, which is Brian Ortega's definitely his strongest suit, is his submissions. But Ortega's 33 years old, 16-3 overall, 8-3 in the UFC, 3-2 by KO TKO, 6-0. Am I reading that right? You know what? I'm gonna just trash this website here and go to a different one, because every time I go to click on something, this shit is not working. So let's go to a different one. Because listen, I can't remember everything, so I like to make sure I have some stats on hand, but it's kind of hard to do that when the website you're using is being stupid. It's 8-0, 3-2 in KO TKOs, 8-0 by submission, which was his last win, was by submission. Arm triangle choke over Yair Rodriguez, and that was in February of this year. Before that, he had lost to Yair because he got that shoulder injury, so that kind of ended that fight for him. And then before that, he lost to Volkanovski, which he sunk in a crazy ass choke. He sunk in a crazy ass choke on Volkanovski, which I can't believe Volk got out of that. But you know, Brian has some decent boxing as well. He's not known for his striking, but he can definitely strike. Here's a big nasty uppercut on Frankie Edgar, that he got the KO win for that one. But yeah, his thing is definitely submissions. He's a great Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's got crazy submissions. and he'll definitely tie you up. And that's something he's going to be looking for, trying to get Diego Lopes down. You know, Lopes is definitely more of a striker. But he's got submissions too. He's more of a well-rounded fighter, I guess you could say overall. You know, he's always looking for those strikes. He's 25-6 overall, and he is 4-1 in the UFC. And that only loss he had was to Movsar Evloev. That was his first fight in the UFC. That's a tough-ass fight for a debut in the UFC. So, did my music just end, or is it taking forever to start up again? It's weird when it gets quiet after the music's been playing. Ah, shit. Let me double check this, see if I messed something up here. Nope, it's just taking forever to start up again, apparently. It's always the little things that drive me nuts. There it is. That's all. I'm gonna have to edit that. I never realized how long there is downtime on this song. So that's weird. But anyway, yeah, so Lopes is more of a striker, but he's got submissions as well. I mean, actually, he has more submissions than KOs, so I should just shut up about that one. But 12-0 by submission. He's never been submitted, so Brian Ortega is looking to take that O away from him in that category. 10-2 in KO TKOs, though. 3-4 by decision. If Brian Ortega can take it to decision, he's got a good chance of winning there, because Lopes has a losing record in the decision category. But here's a big knee from him here, and then over to those subs where he's got 12. Dan Ige, he got a unanimous decision win over. That was a tough fight for him. Ige looked good for coming in on a couple hours notice, because of Brian Ortega having to pull out of that fight. But Lopes had his other wins on the 4-fight win streak he's on. Sadiq Youssef, that was a win by a finish by strikes. Pat Sabatini, KO there. Gavin Tucker, triangle armbar, and then his one loss was Movsar Evloev. That was a unanimous decision loss there in his debut. But yeah, so he's pretty well rounded. He's a younger fighter, but you know, Brian Ortega is one of those guys that can take a lot of fucking punishment. I mean, against Max Holloway, man, it's like, why the fuck did they let that fight keep going? I mean, he was out on his feet multiple times. And you know, Holloway was basically teaching him how to defend in boxing while he was beating his ass. It was crazy. So you know, Ortega's got a chin. He can withstand a lot of damage, but it's not good for him. So if he can get in on Lopes and get him down, you know, maybe they can play the jiu-jitsu game and see who's better on the ground. That might be better for Ortega. But the fact that, you know, Lopes has the better striking and you know, can maybe finish Ortega, this one's tough, man. I really want to go for Ortega just because I followed him for such a long time. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Ow. Nothing like holding back a sneeze. That hurt. But you know, Diego being the more well-rounded fighter for the most part, I think, and just being the younger guy, hungry. I mean, I know Brian is out there trying to, you know, make his way back up where he was before, in contention for the title and stuff. This one's tough to call, but I had to go with Lopes on this one. So that's my pick on there. Again, I'll go over all my picks at the end here, but let's move into the co-main event. For the flyweight title in the women's division, we got Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko happening in a trilogy fight for them. Like I said before, Grasso got the win by that nasty choke, or shit. What would you call that? Wasn't technically a choke. Face crank is what. I mean, she had that shit so tight it looked like Shevchenko was sunburned above where she was getting choked. It was crazy. Which I have a picture, I believe, coming up here. But Grasso 16-3 overall, 8-3 in the UFC, 4-0 by KO in KO TKOs, 2-1 in submissions, and 10-2 by decision. Of course, the women go to decision a lot. Besides that draw to Valentina in their last fight, she's on a 5-fight win streak with wins over Shevchenko, where she won the title, Vivian Araujo, Joanne Wood, Macy Barber, and Ji Yeon Kim. She lost to Carla Esparza, but beat Karolina Kovacevic, lost to Tatiana Suarez. She's fought everybody. Everybody in that division that is a name, she has fought, pretty much. So, and then you got Shevchenko, 23-4 overall, a little bit older, but 36 years old, 12-3 in the UFC, 8-1 by KO TKOs, submission 7-1, decisions 9-2. She's coming off a loss because before that draw, obviously she lost to Grasso for the title. So this is the trilogy fight, happened back to back to back. They just came off of the Ultimate Fighter show where they both coached. And to be honest with you, I did not watch the fucking show. It was just, I couldn't do it. So I don't even know who won. I don't even know what happened in the show. Maybe I'm a bad fan for that, but I don't know a lot of people that really did watch that show all the way through. Ultimate Fighter's just kind of gone down. It's tough to watch. The Contender series being what it is, it's hard not to just watch that instead of, watching the Ultimate Fighter. So bad fan for that one, sorry. But yeah, they just came off that show and now they're fighting for the title again. But Grasso, she's got such crisp boxing, but she's also got those submissions. So being good in all of those aspects is where she has the upper hand here. I mean, Valentina Shevchenko was the GOAT for a little while. We throw that around so, nonchalantly, I guess. But she was killing everybody. But then she kind of fell off at the end there and then lost to Grasso. So Grasso, though, her boxing is insane. It's very crisp, very good, and very accurate. So, oh man, I'm having trouble here. I should have brought some water in here. Yeah, so she can get you with those strikes. She can get you with submissions. There she is landing a big shot to the chin on Shevchenko. And then here's that nasty submission where she won the belt. And you can see how tight that is. It's not under the chin, it's across the chin. And Valentina had to tap out because, you could break someone's jaw with that face crank. So, and it was just crazy how when she let go, it was just like all blood loss across here. Like it was white, pale. I mean, Shevchenko's pale as it is, but she was red above it and below it. And that spot right there was crazy. So, but I mean, Valentina is known as such a great striker. Mostly her kicks. So Grasso has great boxing. She's great with the hands. And Valentina's got the kicks, but she's definitely got punches as well. But she's more known for those kicks. She's got submissions of her own as well. So, I mean, she's pretty well-rounded. That's why she held the title for as long as she did. And that's why she's still there fighting for the title. But here's a nasty KO against Jessica Ai. Look at that. You don't see KOs like that often. You watch, I mean, she's stiff. It's one of the scariest knockouts in the women's division. Watch the ref's face after he walks back right here. He's like, holy shit, that's crazy. Because look how bad, I mean, just knocked her out flat, stiff as a board. Her toes are curled, everything. That is just a crazy ass knockout. So Valentina's got that in her arsenal. Her strikes are amazing. She's got the submissions, but it seems like Alexa is, one of those girls that maybe doesn't have her number completely, but she's definitely got an upper hand on her, being how the last two fights have went. Now, it seems like Valentina was winning most of the time in the last fight, but in the fifth round, it was kind of a judging thing that happened where in the middle of the fifth round, Grasso was able to, get her down, take her back, which is one of Valentina's things that she has an issue with, is getting her back taken. And with somebody that has high-level jiu-jitsu like Grasso, that's not good. So getting her back taken is something that she's allowed Grasso to do multiple times, and that's how she got choked out in the first fight. And that's what lost her the second fight, because Grasso kind of controlled her and kept threatening with those submissions on the ground. that gave her a 10-8 round in the 5th round, and that's what wound up bringing that fight to a draw in their last fight, which is what brings us now to the trilogy fight. So with that all in question, you know, Grasso, it seems like maybe she can, you know, if she tightened things up with her boxing and maybe threw in, you know, some kicks in there and gave her wrestling some work too, because she did let Shevchenko take her down. But I feel like Grasso has the upper hand here. I don't know. I feel like Valentina maybe is on, you know, she's on that downswing in her career, because she just doesn't look as sharp as she used to. Yeah, she might have been winning most of that fight, but she's making these really bad decisions and mistakes at key times of the fight that make her lose. And I know that it's only a couple fights that's happened in, but a couple fights before that where she didn't look her best either. Tyler Santos split decision win back in June of 22. Lauren Murphy, she dominated TKO, but Lauren hung in there, got through to the 4th round. But Tyler Santos, I mean, it did not look like the Shevchenko we know. So that's what's tough. I feel like Grasso's going to have the upper hand here and get the win. So that's my pick. Let's move on to the main event. Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili for the Bantamweight Championship title. And yeah, we got, oh, that was the other thing when I was talking earlier about the Saudi promoted event happening in Las Vegas on Mexican Independence Day with a bunch of Mexican fighters. But yet we have an American and a Georgian for our main event. Now, don't get me wrong. Sean O'Malley claims to be claims to be claimed by Mexicans because he has a Mexican wife and a half Mexican daughter. And Merab his name is Mexican Merab because he says that, you know, he's been adopted into the Mexican culture. So it's funny, but I mean, it's a great fight overall. I can't really complain, but yeah, it seems like this could be a really good fight, or it could turn really bad in a sense, because if Merab wins, it's going to be by decision, almost guaranteed. So he's going to drag it out all 5 rounds, and it's going to be a lot of grappling and wrestling and just kind of pressure. And you're not going to see a lot of crazy action. Sean O'Malley, though, in the first couple rounds is super dangerous, and I feel like that's where he has the best chance of winning. Maybe first 2.5 rounds. But if this gets drug out past the 3rd round, I mean, Merab has the upper hand there. So, but O'Malley's 16-1 in overall, with his one loss being against Chito Vera, which he disputes all the time. And then he's 10-1 in the UFC, 11-1 by KO TKO, 2-0 in submissions, 5-0 by decision. He's on a 6-fight win streak against Merab, who's 17-4 overall, 10-2 in the UFC. His 2 losses came in his first 2 fights of the UFC when he debuted. So it didn't look good for him, but he turned it around, and now he's on a damn you know what? I fucked that up because he's on a 10-fight win streak, basically. Let me double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I don't know where I got 3 from. I just don't think I changed that. But who cares? That's just fuck. I don't know why I even focus on that. But anyway, yeah, so Merab has the grappling and the pressure and the wrestling, and Sean is a striker, but he could do it all too. I mean, he's fought, I mean, he's been in some jiu-jitsu matches where he's beat high-level jiu-jitsu guys before as well. So, you know, he kind of has it all. That's why he's the champ right now. He came from Dana White's Contender series, and he's the current champ for a reason, like I said. So, where was I going? I'm trying to navigate through this. Yeah, 13-3 in decisions for Merab, 1-1 in submissions, and 3-0 by KO TKO. So he's not big on striking. He doesn't finish a lot of fights by striking. But Sean O'Malley does. 11-1 there. So like I said, early in the fight, Merab's got to be worried about the hands of Sean, because this is when he just battered the shit out of Chris Moutinho, I think. But yeah, this was one of those fights where it's like, this dude, I don't know how he's getting through this fight and getting his ass whooped like he is, but yeah, it was a crazy fight, and Sugar gave him everything and he couldn't finish him. But he's got this striking down for sure. Against Peter Yan, big left here against Eljo that won him the belt, which, by the way, that is Merab's training partner and best friend. But yeah, he had this big knee against Chito Vera in the rematch. That was a nasty knee. If you saw that, I mean, if you listened to that and watched it live, you heard the crack of that knee was crazy. I don't know how Chito was able to withstand that and keep fighting. But yeah, Sugar, and then he landed this big left or right, I'm sorry, and he battered Chito pretty good. And they buried their beef after that, which was cool. But I mean, that was a crazy fight. That was his last fight, I believe. His last title defense, yeah, against Chito. And Chito was also the one that beat him because, Sean got that, drop foot, or he hurt his ankle or something. And so he doesn't even consider that a loss to him. But he did lose to Chito. That was his last loss. So, and that was also his last win. So, pretty crazy there. But Merab has some striking. He's got a few wins by KO TKO, and but his biggest thing, I mean, are the takedowns. I mean, he got this big right against Henry Cejudo, but his biggest thing are the takedowns. He struggled taking down. Sean's definitely made and earned his way through the ranks, and yeah, much love to Mighty Mouse. I know we both like this fighting style. Oh, what up, Cremo? It's Christo in the chat. Appreciate you. Yeah, Sugar is tough to go against, man. But Merab's got these takedowns, and if he can get inside on Sean and control him with the wrestling and the grappling. I mean, he did an Olympic wrestler dirty by picking him up and running him across the cage and slamming him. This was against Henry Cejudo. Now, a lot of people don't respect Cejudo as much as you would think for being an Olympic gold medalist, but Merab did his thing against him, and like I said, 10 fight win streak. Merab's definitely been waiting for this title shot, and he's got some bad blood and some beef with Sugar Sean and Sugar Sean's coach. So this should be interesting. I feel like it's going to be a good fight. I feel like if it goes to the later rounds, it's Merab's fight to lose, but if it ends early, it's going to be because Sugar Sean lands something big and gets Merab out of there by KO. So here's my overall picks. I might change them. I'm not sure, because that Osbourne one, I second guessed real hard. But as of right now, all of these are very close fights in the odds. So I get these from DraftKings. I got them right before I came on here. So Osbourne is a -135 favorite. Daniel Zellhuber's -105, but I don't know that he's the favorite. I think his opponent's like -125. So it's kind of like pick'em fights here. Diego Lopes -110. Alexa Grasso +125. And then Sugar Sean +100. It's kind of a pick'em still, both of those. But look at that. You got the two champs at plus money. So it's kind of I might have to split these up and parlay them in different ways, or maybe individual bets. I'm not sure, but either way, those are some crazy odds. How close they are, how low they are, and the fact that there's only two champions on the card are plus money right now. It's tough not to bet on that. So those are my picks for now. I might do this whole parlay and then do some different variations of it. Break them up a little bit just to try to get myself a good win, because I need it. But that's it. Shit. There we go. That's it. That does it. UFC Noche. coming up Saturday night. Don't forget to watch the watch party going live as soon as the main card goes live. I'm going to have a few people in the studio. It's going to be fun. Live reactions to all the fights. We're going to be talking shit, having fun, having drinks, hitting the smelling salts because it's always fun when the smelling salts are involved. Sponsored by Noctane. Go check it out. Go check out their website. It's a cool website, aesthetically pleasing and very informational. You can check out their colored cap system as far as potency. Check out what kind of scents you can add to all of them and get yourself a bottle. Try it out because it's good shit. And yeah, watch party happening 7 p.m. right here, same channel, during the main card of UFC Noche. So don't miss that. And then come back next week for a recap of UFC Noche. Talk about all the fun stuff we did on the watch party. And then preview what's coming up for the week after that. Talk about any other combat sports news. So shout out again to Noctane Smelling Salts. Appreciate the sponsorship. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Cold Art Maker, my wife, my mom, Cremo, Infinity. Appreciate you all. Thank you for anybody watching live, watching after. Don't forget you can check me out on Spotify. It's right there. And go follow me everywhere on social media as well. I've been putting out some TikToks and stuff, so go check that out. That's it for me. I'm out of here. Take it easy. Have a good night. Enjoy the fights, boxing, UFC, all the other good stuff happening. Don't forget the watch party Saturday. That's the thing that matters the most. I'm out of here. Thanks again. Take it easy. Peace.